Hello, my name is Mark and you're watching Noah's Narrative. Noah's Narrative is a channel which narrates the stories related to your own life based on real things. And please subscribe this channel because this channel is just for sake of you, to entertain you, to learn something for you. The taste of the yesterday, the morning after the dream. Nora woke up gasping, her fingers already clawing at the collar of her sleep shirt, pulling it away from her throat as if she could make room for air that was not there. The ceiling of her old bedroom stared back at her, plain and white and impossibly still. She pressed one palm flat against her sternum and felt her heartbeat knocking back, frantic and offended like a bird that had been squeezed in a fist and then let go. She sat up. The alarm clock on the nightstand read 6:42, which meant she had slept less than 4 hours. The dream had been the same one it always was. The one where she was sitting at the long oak dining table while her older sister, Cassie, landed soup into her bowl, smiling that wide, easy smile that showed every tooth. And the soup smelled wrong in a way Nora could never name but always recognized, warm and slightly chemical under the rich garlic steam. And then she would swallow and the warmth would turn cold and slide down wrong and she would try to stand but her legs had already decided to stop working. She had been waking from that dream for 3 years. Tonight, though something was different, Nora stood, crossed the room and pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the window below. The front yard sat in the pale grey of very early morning. Cassie's car was parked in the driveway, a silver sedan still bedded with last night's rain. Cassie had driven down from the city the evening before to spend the weekend with their parents, Patrick and Ruth. Nora, who had moved back home 8 months ago to save money, had not been consulted about this visit. She rarely was. The things she found in the pantry downstairs, the house breathed the slow breath of sleeping people. Nora moved through the hall in shocked feet, trailing one hand along the wall. She was not sure what she was looking for until she found it. She had gone into the pantry for coffee filters, and on the second shelf, tucked between a can of chickpeas and a box of jasmine rice, was a small paper bag she did not recognize. It was folded neatly at the top, the kind of the fold you make when you want something to look unremarkable. Inside, wrapped in a single sheet of wax paper, was a cellophane envelope of dried mushrooms. The label was handwritten in Cassie's slanted cursive for the risotto Sunday. Nora held the envelope up to the light from the pantry bulb. The mushrooms inside were dark and shriveled, a brownish black that was a shade or two darker than any dried porcini she had ever seen in the grocery store. She had read enough in the past 3 years, late nights with a phone screen in a dark room, to know what that shade sometimes meant. She set the envelope back exactly where it had been. She did not let her hands shake. She told them firmly, not yet. Back in her room, she sat on the edge of the mattress for a long time and thought about what kind of person plans something twice. She thought about the fact that her parents were going to sit at that table at 6 o'clock tonight and eat whatever was placed in front of them, because that was what Patrick and Ruth had always done. They trusted the food on their table the way they trusted the sun to rise. It had never occurred to them that they should not. The decision made quickly. By 7:15, Nora had her coat on, her keys in her pocket, and a list in her hands. She drove to the grocery store when it opened and moved through the aisles with the focused calm of someone who has decided on a course and is simply executing it. She bought creamy mushrooms, porcini, arborio rice, and good parmesan, a bunch of thin, unsalted butter, a box of low sodium stock, and a bottle of a dry white wine. She also bought a small notebook and a pen, and in the parking lot before she started the car, she wrote down the time, the date, and what she had found on the shelf in her own handwriting, unhurried and clear. When she got back to the house, Cassie was in the kitchen making coffee. She had her silk robe on, her blonde hair loose, and she looked exactly the way she always looked in the morning, which was unfairly beautiful and only slightly human. She watched Nora set the grocery bags on the counter without saying anything for a moment. Then she said, "You're up early." "Could not sleep," Nora said. She started unpacking the bags. "I thought I would cook tonight. Gives you a break." She looked up then, just for a second, and she had Cassie's eyes long enough to let something pass between them, something that had no name and needed none. Cassie's coffee cup stirred in her hand. "I was going to do a mushroom risotto," Nora said perfectly. "I know how much you love it." Steam and silence, the kitchen at a stage. The afternoon moved slowly away. Sunday afternoons in family houses always do, heavy with the smell of someone cooking and the low murmur of a football game from the living room where Patrick had stationed himself with a bowl of pretzels. Ruth came in and out of the kitchen offering to help, and each time Nora said she had it under control. "Thank you, Mom." "Really, sit down." Ruth sat down. She was the kind of a woman who believed people when they said they had things under control, which was something Nora had always loved about her, and which tonight made her chest achy in a specific way she could not look at directly. She stayed upstairs for most of the afternoon. Nora could hear her up there, pacing or maybe just moving from room to room the way people do when they are thinking very hard and need their body to be doing something. Once Nora heard the pantry door open and then close again, quick and then footsteps. On the stairs going back up, she kept stirring the arborio rice turned opaque in a hot butter, grain by grain, the way it was supposed to. At 5:45, Cassie came downstairs fully dressed in a blue linen shirt and dark jeans, her hair pulled back, her expression assembled carefully into the one she wore to family's dinner, which was warm and older sisterly and faintly generous, as if she were doing everyone a small favor by being there. She stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at the stove. She looked at the wooden spoon in Nora's hand. She looked at the pile of ceremony stamps on the cutting board. What she said and what she meant, "That smells incredible," Cassie said. Her voice was smooth, but there was something underneath it, a thinness like pepper, held up to a light. "What mushrooms did you use?" "Just ceremony and porcini," Nora said. "Fresh from the store. I got there when they opened." She paused, then added without inflection, "I wanted to make sure I used the good ones. I left the ones in the pantry alone." She ladled stock into the pan, and it sizzled and steamed. Figured you were saving those for something else." Cassie said nothing for 4 full seconds. Nora counted right. Cassie said, "Finally, good call." She went to the wine rack and poured herself a glass with a steady hand. That, Nora noted, with something close to professional respect. Cassie had always been controlled. It was one of the things that had made her so hard to read for so long. Patrick came in from the living room when the game went to halftime, and Ruth followed, and soon all 4 of them were in the kitchen the way families are before a meal, everyone moving slightly around everyone else. The choreography of people who have shared a house, and it should have felt normal, and instead it felt like a hell breed. The table is set. Nora served the risotto at 6:10. She plated it herself, a white shallow bowl for each person, a shaving of parmesan over the top, a sprig of thyme she had crisped in the pan for 30 seconds before, because Ruth always liked that. A little visual touch. She set a bowl in front of her mother, one in front of her father, one at her own place. She bought Cassie's bowl last and set it down gently without ceremony. Patrick said it looked beautiful. Ruth said it smelled like the restaurant they had gone to for their anniversary 4 years ago. The one in the old hotel downtown, and was not that something. They both picked up their spoons. Nora picked up hers. She took a small bite and the rice was perfect. Al dente, the mushrooms earthy, the parmesan sharp in the best way. She took another bite. She watched her parents eat with uncomplicated happiness of people having a very good meal. Across the table, Cassie had not touched her bowl. Her spoon was still resting against the rim, unused. She was looking at the risotto the way you look at something when you are trying to calculate a distance. Her hands were in her lap. Nora watched her. Ruth was telling a story about the restaurant, and Patrick was nodding along. Cassie looked up and met Nora's eyes and looked back down at the bowl. She did not pick up her spoon. What she could not swallow, the silence at the table. Ruth noticed first, the way mothers always do. She noticed without looking directly, the same way she had always known when someone in the house was unhappy before anyone had said a word. She glanced at Cassie's untouched bowl and said lightly, "Not hungry, sweetheart." Cassie smiled and said she had snacked too much that afternoon. She was sorry. It looked amazing. It really did. Ruth accepted this. Patrick did not look up from his bowl. Nora took another bite and did not say anything at all. The meal went on. Patrick had 2 helpings, and Ruth finished her bowl and reached across to pat Nora's hand and said she really had outdone herself. Cassie rearranged the risotto in her bowl twice with the back of her spoon without eating any of it, like a child moving food around to make it look smaller. By the time Ruth started clearing plates, Cassie's bowl was still almost full and her glass of wine was almost empty. And she had talked through the whole meal with an animation that was slightly too bright, asking their father questions about the game, telling their mother about a new coffee shop near her apartment, keeping the surface of things busy. When Ruth carried the plates to the sink, Nora stood to help, and for a moment, she and Cassie were alone at the table. Cassie looked at her. Her face in that moment was not the assembled one she had worn all evenings. It was stripped of that. And what was underneath was something Nora had not expected. Not defiance, not guilt exactly, but a kind of exhausted recognition. The face of someone who knows the game has changed and has not yet decided what move to make in the new version of it. The quick conversation after dinner, "You didn't use them," Cassie said. "It was not quite a question." "No," Nora said. "How long have you known?" Nora considered the scene for a moment, long enough. She said, "I woke up this morning and I knew it was going to happen again if I didn't do something different. So I did something different." She looked at her sister steadily. "I cooked a clean meal for the people I love. That's all I did tonight." Cassie pressed her lips together. Outside, a car passed on the street, its headlights sweeping briefly across the dinner room wall. "What are you going to do?" Cassie said. It still was not quite a question. "I already did it," Nora said. "I wrote it all down, dated. What I found, where I found it, what it looked like. It's in a safe place." She stood up from the table and picked up the bread basket to carry it to the kitchen. "What you do next is up to you. What peace feels like when it finally arrives." Cassie left early the next morning before anyone else was up. Her silver sedan was gone from the driveway before 7. She did not say goodbye in person, just sent a group text that said she had a work things. Love you all. Sorry for the quick exit. Ruth texted back 3 hearts emojis. Patrick did not text back because Patrick had never once in his life sent a text with an emoji and was not going to start now. Nora sat in the kitchen with her coffee and watched the morning come in through the window over the sink. The light at that hour was the color of the big tea, thin and honest. She was not shaking. She was not crying. She felt something she had not felt in 3 years, which was that the floor under her feet was solid and was going to stay that way. She was alive. She had cooked a clean meal. She had watched her sister refuse to eat a single bite of it, and in that refusal and had seen everything she needed to see. The notebook with her handwriting in it was tucked in the interior pocket of her coat, which was hanging on the hook by the front door. The envelope in the pantry was gone because Cassie had taken it with her when she left, and that was fine because Nora had photographs on her phone, time-stamped clear. She poured more coffee. She heard Ruth's footsteps upstairs, the small morning sounds on her mother starting her day. Nora thought about how when Ruth came downstairs, she was going to ask if Nora wanted eggs, and Nora was going to say yes, and they were going to make breakfast together in the cheerful morning kitchen, and it was going to be ordinary and safe and completely real. She thought that was maybe the most beautiful thing she could imagine right now. Ordinary, safe, real. She wrapped both hands around her mug and let it warm her palms, and she waited for her mother to come downstairs. So this is the channel for you. Please subscribe this channel, Noah's Narrative, because this channel is so much real for you. We are going to narrate real stories of real life stories. So please subscribe this channel. Thank you so much.